So we're gonna plug the ChromeDriver. I already had it on my desktop. Again, you can see that our code is really nicely structured. But what it did is actually clicked all those buttons. Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of Nomadic Dmitry channel. I'm very excited about the topic we're gonna talk today, because today we're gonna discuss the automation. Automation using Selenium WebDriver, ChromeDriver, and basically PageObject concept. Because many tutorials talk about just automating of using the Selenium WebDriver, and without the PageObject, PageFactory concept, just like diving into the scripts, the sequence of commands we execute on the website. But I think we should just go a little bit deeper and discuss how useful it can be using PageObject module and this concept overall. The web page we're gonna be examining and executing our test on today is the Formy. Basically, it's just a form that we can, for example, fill out like first name, last name, and just submit this form. Obviously, this is just for testing purposes. It's not a real data. This is just a good place to test our scripting automation skills mostly. Let's discuss it. Here's my article. It's gonna be provided down in the description, as well as the GitHub repository that you can just explore. Here it is. Let's discuss it step by step. So the environment that we're going to be using today is the IntelliJ IDEA, and I personally prefer it over Eclipse. I don't know, I just like it. We're going to be programming using Java language, and the browser we're going to be using is Chrome, because I think like Chrome is the most popular browser, and I think it just makes sense to try with Chrome first before diving deeper into other browsers. And we're going to be using the power of OOP, object-oriented programming, to execute our test. What exactly is the Selenium? The Selenium is a tool to automate the execution of manual web browser workflows. Basically, whatever we execute manually, like just clicking all the buttons, doing the all user kind of interactions, we can automate most of those scenarios. When we talk about testing some application, we can test it manually, right? By just manually clicking all the buttons and checking all the values. But I mean, it's not very efficient, it's not very fast, and there's like always some room for errors. If we use some automation tools like Selenium WebDriver, we're able to perform all those actions very fast and without even any user interaction. We just press the button, or it automatically runs as a script on a machine, and that's it. It just checks all the values. When we talk about automation, here's what automation tools most of the time perform. So they load the URL in the browser, they are finding elements on the page, a specific element, for example, in this case login, it sends the key, for example, it's like first name of the user, and then it performs the click, right? Sounds simple, right? So this is like actual WebDriver commands that I used in the real world scenarios, where I actually write it like this. After all performed, what we need to do, we need to validate the state. We need to validate this exactly is the action that was performed. All right, so we're gonna be using the Formy form, as I said, for automation. What we're gonna do is basically we're gonna type a username, we're gonna type password, and we're gonna click submit, and then we're gonna verify the success message that shows up. Setting up the project. Let's get into the setting up the project. So I open IntelliJ IDEA. You can download IntelliJ by using the links I provide in the description down below. Basically, we're going to create a new project. We're going to press this button to create a new project. And what we need to do, we need to select Maven. Maven is a build automation tool. It's very useful because instead of putting all our necessary libraries manually, like downloading everything and putting everything manually, we can just provide this IDE with the path to all those components, and it's going to download it automatically. So we don't need to actually do anything manually, like copying files, pasting files. We don't need to do all that. So we're going to press next. We're going to type Formy automated. We're going to save it on desktop, right? And desktop, and then Formy automated. All right, we're going to click finish, and it's going to create the project. Our project is created. Now let's get into it. First of all, we need to open this POM XML file. The pom.xml is a file that contains all the path to the libraries that we need to download, and that's what we're gonna do. As I described here in the article, I described here all this logic behind it. We're gonna need those. We're gonna need Selenium library to provide us with all the automation capabilities. We need to plug the TestNG library. This is the unit testing library that allows to verify the values. For example, if what we get is actually what we expect. So it compares like what we expect, the results, and what the actual result was. And then we have Maven Surefire plugins. We're not going to be using much. This one probably is going to be in another video, so make sure to subscribe for other videos. And let's actually copy this part here. We're gonna paste those right here, and you can see here is the button that appears right here. So it's load Maven changes. So we need to press this button to actually load all those libraries. So we're gonna press the Maven M button, and we can see here it's gonna add much more libraries here. It's a lot more libraries, but it's very fast and we don't need to download anything manually. It's just perfect, and we can also specify the version that we need to use and all that. Now there's also one thing we need to note. We are using the WebDriver, but since we're using the Chrome as a browser, we also need to plug a specific ChromeDriver here, specific version of ChromeDriver. ChromeDriver is a tool that is used with WebDriver to automate web pages, basically. We cannot proceed without the ChromeDriver or IE driver or Edge driver. There's a driver for each browser, but it's a separate topic. We're gonna discuss it separately later on. So we're gonna plug the ChromeDriver. I already had it on my desktop. We're gonna just copy it here, and we're gonna have a ChromeDriver right here in the root directory. All our project is mostly ready for automation. Now let's discuss the code. Basically, if we want just a shortcut, just a short route without any complications of PageObject and any structure at all, we can just write our test like this. We basically set property, we specify that we need to use the ChromeDriver and the path to the ChromeDriver. Then we're gonna create an instance of a ChromeDriver like this, and then we're just gonna use this right here. We're gonna just get this URL. We're gonna find element like the first name by ID and the last name by ID, and then we're just gonna press the submit button, and that's it. Now this is not really a great approach, because if we decide to add more elements here, if we decide to more things here, it's gonna be a problem because it's hard to modify. You need to actually go manually and modify all those values. It's not really a great way to approach. For this reason, we're gonna use the PageObject model as we discussed. So what we need to do is we actually need to create a project structure, and in this project structure we're going to be using basically 4 classes here. The main class is going to be the PageObject, which is going to be description of how object should be in terms of WebDriver configuration. So basically this object going to be parent object of all our other pages. For example, on a web page we might have like login page, we might have the about page, we might have some other pages. So we're going to have like multiple pages, and for all those pages we're going to create a separate object. For example, in this instance we have a web form. Web form is actually the form that we're going to be using. Basically this page is a web form, and we're going to be automating only this page. So for this reason we only create the web form here. Next thing is the Utils. This class is going to hold all the configuration stuff for our tests. For example, we're going to configure where WebDriver is located. We're going to configure all the values that we need to actually pass to our tests. It's a good way. We can also add some additional methods here to be able to configure all our tests. And then we're gonna have the test plan class, which basically is gonna be wiring up all this stuff together. It basically is gonna use a WebForm methods, which is gonna hold methods for performing all the actions here and all the elements. It's gonna hold all the reference to the elements. Basically it's gonna know where's the login field located, where's the password field located, and where's a submit button located. It's gonna know all that. Let's proceed to perform that. Let's first write the code for our PageObject, and this is the code for the PageObject. So we're creating the class PageObject, we're creating the instance of the driver, WebDriver, and then all we do is just passing this driver to all our pages. Basically, there's nothing complicated here. We're basically creating like an example of how all our pages should behave. We're just gonna reuse this code in our later pages, and that's it. So we're gonna go to sources, test, Java, and we're gonna create new Java class. The name of it is gonna be PageObject, and we're basically gonna paste it from here. You can type it as well, but let me just, for the simplicity, we're gonna just paste it. So it asks that we need to actually import this library. So we press the Alt return key to actually import all that, and we're gonna press Alt Enter key to import the WebDriver as well. So basically PageFactory and WebDriver, we're gonna import all those, and you can see it was all imported here at the top. All right, so we're done with the main object for our testing, which is good. Now we're gonna write the Utils class. This is the class that's gonna hold all the constants, all the configuration for our test. So we're gonna go again, press new Java class, and we're gonna call it Utils. Now again, there's nothing complicated here. We just create final static string base URL, and we're gonna create the string which is ChromeDriver location. This just provides a location to the ChromeDriver. Since ChromeDriver is located in the root directory right here, we don't need to add anything here. It's just gonna work. But if you have some other location, you need to provide that. So we're gonna copy that as well. It's done. We have utils page. We specify the base URL that we're gonna automate. Next we want to do is here in the article I described that you actually need to download the binary for the ChromeDriver from the official website, and basically you need to click this button, download the binary, and here you're gonna click those links depending on the browser version you use. For example, if it's version 83, download this one and select your platform. As I said, we just need to paste it into the root directory or whatever you like. If there's some mismatch, for example using ChromeDriver, let's say you download ChromeDriver for Windows but you're on Mac and it's not gonna work, or the version like you have Chrome 82 and you download the binary for 83, it's not gonna work. You should be having the same version for ChromeDriver and your actual browser that you use. So next we're gonna discuss this one. So WebForm is the actual class that we're gonna use in our tests. It's very important to understand all here. So here we're providing the variables for our first name and last name, because who knows, maybe we want to reuse this variable many times in our test, for example, and we're just gonna have all that in a single place, and in case we want to change it, we just go to the WebForm class and we just change all that. So it's easy. Afterwards we need to define our locations of the object. Let's say we go to Formy, and if we press here right click and we press inspect, it's gonna provide information about the ID of this form, ID of this specific element of the web form, right? So here it says first name, and this is exactly what we need. So we're just gonna inspect all elements like that, and we can basically inspect it easily. It's just a very easy way to inspect the elements. It's not working all the time, but most of the time it's actually really helpful for any developers and testers. So basically that's exactly what we use. We have a first name here, and we assigning this first name locator to the web element. So here we use the class web element, and we assign the value of the first name here. So basically, alright, so we have the web element first name. Then we're gonna repeat it the same for all the locators. We have the last name, so we need to make sure that the last name is actually this ID. You're gonna press inspect again and make sure it's last name. The ID of it is last name. It has the last name ID, which is exactly what we need. Good. And here's the thing about the submit button. We're gonna discuss it further, but basically for the submit button, there's no ID, and for this reason we're gonna use different locator methodology. In this case, we're gonna use XPath type of locator. XPath is basically a location of an element in the hierarchy of the HTML elements, and here it basically just shows that find any link. A is a link that contains a text with the submit button. So basically it contains the text submit in there. That's also easy, but sometimes it's a bit hard to construct all those XPath, so it's actually also like takes some practice to get used to it. So what we do here, again, we just passing the WebDriver instance from our parent class, and our parent class is what? It's a page object, and basically we're just gonna reuse whatever is in the page object. And here you can also see that WebForm extends page objects. So extends is very important here. We are extending the page object. If you don't specify the extend, if you don't create this, it's not gonna work because it doesn't know like what WebDriver is. So this we just like decompiling it all in different parts and different classes, so it's easy to reuse and like easy to modify. And then we write three methods here. Enter first name methods basically taking this first name and just sends the key of the first name, sends the key of this variable, and this variable is what? This variable is the first name. Just easy as that. And then we're gonna use the same method for the last name. We're taking the last name variable here and then send the keys of the last name. And then the third thing is just actually pressing the submit button. And here we're taking the web element submit button and we perform the method called click. So just two methods we perform here, click and send keys. Send keys just allows just instead of writing it all manually, just like types it like first name like that. All right, let's actually copy this class to our project. So we have it here, it looks fine. No errors are displayed, we're good. And now the last step. Now we're gonna wire it all together. Here we're gonna discuss this. So basically we're creating the instance of the WebDriver. This is the WebDriver instance that's gonna be reused in the PageObject class and in our classes as well. So basically this is the driver instance that we're gonna be using in our tests. We also need to discuss this before suite, test, and after suite. These are the annotations of TestNG library. We have created the TestNG library by providing this dependency TestNG allows us to mark our tests. For example, we need to set up this variable set property, right? Instead of writing inside each of the tests like set property, we can say that before executing this test, we need to have this property set up. We set up this property and then we execute all our tests. And here's our test actually, what we do. First of all, yes, we mark it with annotation test and then we provide a test name. And in this case, it's submit a form. So it's useful to mark the test name here. So we just said like submit a form is the name of the test. Then we're gonna do what? We're gonna just create a new method, which is a submit form test. We're gonna create a collection of all our methods together. So we're just collecting it all together and executing in the right sequence. So what we do here, we are executing driver.get and we are executing from this class. We are taking the value of our base URL, utils.base URL, which is what? It's here, base URL. This is what we taken from there. And then we are just creating an instance of our web form. So our web form is this one. We're just creating an instance of it so we can work with it later. So basically we create an instance of it and this instance is called web form, and then we just execute the methods in this web form. We just say enter first name, enter last name, and press submit button. This is exactly what we have here, right? Enter first name, enter last name, and press submit button. So there's nothing complex of it. And then we're executing the last one. We're executing the AfterSuite annotation here. It does all the cleanup. So it actually says driver.manage, delete all cookies, and driver.close. So basically we're deleting all the cookies and we are closing the instance of the WebDriver that we have created here. So basically we're finishing with the test. Let's go ahead and create this class, test plan. Alright, so this seems good. This seems like we are ready. Let's actually go ahead and execute the test. To execute the test, one of the ways to do it is basically right here. On the left side of the test method, there's a run test button here. This is happening because we have this test annotation. If we remove it or like comment it, you see it disappears because now it doesn't know that it's actually a test. This is a great way to annotate all our stuff here. So let's go ahead and press this run submit form method, submit form test. You see this also indicates a TestNG here because it's a TestNG test. And now we have instantiating test. Let's see what actually it performs. Alright, so it goes first name, last name, and presses submit. Because it was so fast you didn't even saw it basically. But what it did is actually clicked all those buttons. Test name was a submit a web form, and actually this is what is indicated right here. So it actually submitted the web form and succeeded. It shows this green mark right here. Now let's actually break the test to see what happens if something goes wrong. If we go to the web form and let's say ID of the test, we modify it instead of first name is gonna be first name. Incorrect, right? So we're gonna go back to the test plan and then we're gonna press it again. And let's see what happens now. It's failing because there's no such ID, and you can see here it's gonna say something about no such element exception. That's it, basically it doesn't work. So there's one thing left to discuss. It's basically validation. After it all completed all that, all we need to do is actually we need to validate that this actually completed fine. So we need to validate the message that we received from our website, from our Chrome instance. Actually, let's first fix our test and let's go back to the web form and let's provide the letter first here. Next, let's actually go down this article and I basically discuss all the stuff here. I discuss also the locators, the ways how to find locators, and I also discuss how you can use different tools and ways to locate the elements on the web page. I also discuss that you can also use this tool which is called Selenium IDE. This tool basically provides the ability to record tests as a sequence. You basically don't even need to write any code. You just press the record button, it provides all the stuff. But the problem is that okay, you have all all the stuff outlined here, but it's not a maintainable code. It's just good for like probably executing like few times and that's it. And good to find locators. It's a good way to understand and locators, how it works, how to create locators. It's a good tool to helping you with that. So test validation. Here's the thing that we missing here, as we discussed. We are not verifying that the form was successfully submitted. On the Formy, if you just press the submit button, it says this form was successfully submitted. We actually need to validate this message that it was actually submitted. So let's go to the WebForm and paste this line of code. So basically what it does, again, there's nothing new here. We're allocating the element, and the element, we're just looking for the text which basically says this form was successfully submitted. We're just looking at this specific part of the page and looking for that. We are using the alert success web element just to have a variable. Yes, let's go ahead and add it here. Again, you can see that our code is really nicely structured. Alright, and then we're gonna add additional method here. This additional method here is gonna be this one, verify alert success. That's it. Basically, we verify that this alert is displayed. So this is a WebDriver method to verify that this actual form, this element was displayed on the page or not. And it's gonna return back true if it's displayed or false if it's not, basically. And then we're just gonna add a couple more lines to our test plan. This first line does this. It actually waits for a few seconds before the element is displayed until it shows this no element exception, right? Because the problem with test very frequently is that, okay, the test presses the button at the very high speed, but at the same time at some point it might fail because it's expecting everything to be executing very fast, and at some point we need to like just slow down and say, hey, wait for this element until you proceed, because sometimes it may just say like, hey, I cannot find it because it expected this element to be like in a second or so, but we actually reload and we go to different page, so we need to have some kind of delay. We're gonna copy this line over here in our test plan. You can read more about this implicit timeouts on the web. It's a really easy concept. Basically here we're using the easiest version. We just basically wait for 5 seconds, but there's also explicit wait. And this explicit wait allows to wait until some element is displayed or not. So basically it checks for the state of element if it's displayed or not displayed, and only then if it finds it, then it proceeds. If not, it doesn't proceed. We're gonna import class, and then we're gonna paste this line. Again, this just like verifies that this element is displayed. That's it. Alright, so we're ready to execute our test. We're gonna press write submit form, and what it's gonna do is gonna actually check this message. Let's see. Alright. You saw it has this green message that everything was successful. Here it is, guys. We have our test ready, our test execute, our tests are manageable. So our tests appear fine instead of appearing like this, like as I described at the beginning of the article. We have everything like separately, we can reuse, we can add more methods, we can just like have fun with those tests, right? I mean, it's really nice. What we actually can do and what we're gonna discuss in the next videos is about customizing our test, is about providing the values to our methods. For example, it's called parameterization, and we're also gonna discuss some other stuff, because this test is just one test, right? What we have like 20 tests, how to actually adjust the sequence, how to adjust the sequence of the test, like how they execute. Because if you write 20 tests right here, it's not gonna execute this like one by one. It's gonna have this executed, I think, alphabetically, and in this case we need to customize it using the XML file, which we're gonna use with Maven Surefire plugin. So stay tuned for those tutorials. I hope this tutorial was fun for you, and if you like it, please subscribe and press the like button, leave a comment down below, and I'm gonna provide the links to the repository as well as the article I have written here. So thank you guys for watching, and see you later. Bye bye.